Okay, Mr. Boone, you're all set.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Crestwood School Board of Directors for April 2021. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hopefully that will be in person next month and that will sound better. I apologize to the public for our late start. We started an executive session at 5 o'clock and even though it was a short agenda, we did run over because of the lengths of some of the discussions. Roll call, please.
Ms. Bibla? Here. Mr. Brogna? Mrs. McCurdy?
Here.
Mrs. McGovern?
Here.
Mrs. Spath?
Here.
Mr. Swank?
Present.
Mr. Costello?
Here.
Mrs. Haddix?
Here.
And Mr. Boone?
Here.
8 members present.
Executive session was held prior to the regular board meeting tonight in regard to contracts, personnel, and active or pending litigation. I will be seeking approval of the regular board minutes from the meeting of March 18th, 2021. And I will then be seeking approval of the treasurer's report of March 2021. At this time, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, to our public, faculty, staff, students, anyone in attendance. Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday evening, April 15th of 2021. I'd like to bring some of our happenings to light. We have our National Business Honor Society induction will be taking place on Wednesday, April 21st. So we'll be on the secondary campus. In May, we have a busy May. We have a Powerpuff football game. This is traditionally held during our football season, but of course with COVID, we were not able to hold it this year, but we do want to hold this very important event. Goes to a great cause. So there will be a Powerpuff football game. The actual date and time will be announced shortly. French Honor Society induction, May 12th, held here on the secondary campus. Our high school play. I did get an opportunity last year to see one of our high school performances. It's tremendous. Of course, COVID has everything a little bit different. This will be a little bit different, but May 21st, May 22nd, our high school play. Cannot wait to watch our students perform again. National Junior Honor Society induction will take place May 26th here on the secondary campus. Spanish Honor Society induction, May 27th. Now, I just want to mention all these events will be streamed, okay, because we know that there's going to be very limited capacity. So these will be streamed for our families and for our friends to be able to see these amazing accomplishments from our students. National Honor Society induction, Tuesday, June 1st. We will be holding a senior prom on Wednesday, June 2nd. Again, this is, we're in COVID and things are going to be different. This will be an outdoor event where hoping for nice weather. It's going to be at the Iram County Club Pavilion. I'm sorry, the Iram Country Club Pavilion. That is Wednesday, June 2nd for our seniors. Senior Awards Class Night is happening Monday, June 7th on our secondary campus. We are, and I'm proud to announce, we will hold a senior parade once again this year. The date is tentatively scheduled for Friday, June 11th. We do need to still speak with our friends at the Wright Township Police Department, Chief Engler and his department. I know they will participate and help get this thing off the ground with us and for us. So I know I can announce our senior parade will take place very much like last year, and we are excited for that. Graduation will be Saturday, June 12th at the Mohegan Sun Arena. The program is going to start at 2 p.m. and each graduate will be allotted 8 tickets. Their capacity is 2,500 for our type of event. So this will allow us to have 8 tickets provided to each graduate. And the great tradition that I have yet to be a part of, the senior lock-in will take place on June 12th here at the secondary campus. I am told it is one of those amazing, amazing events, a special event, really, exclusive to Crestwood. So I can't wait to see and be a part of that event. Not all night, I could never make it, but at least for the kickoff of it. I want to congratulate the following FBLA members who placed top 10 at our state competition. Chloe Kaplan, 10th place. Spreadsheet applications, Carter Laubach, first place, accounting 2. Carter qualified for nationals, way to go. Shivani Patel, 4th place, business law, qualified for nationals, congratulations. Liam Petty, 4th place, business calculations, qualified for nationals as well. So wonderful job to our FBLA members. An organization always does a great job. Our Mrs. Laba also is our advisor and has really just year in and year out done a great job with our students. I would like to congratulate as well as wish well to 2 coaches that we will be accepting resignations this evening on. Carrie Fye, who has spent 29 years at Crestwood, 14 of them as our head coach of our cheer team. We wish you very well, Carrie, in all the free time that you will now have in your life. And our second one, Mr. Darren Testa. Darren Testa has spent 26 total years as a coach for our district, 17 years as a head coach, 7 years as an assistant coach, and 2 years as head coach of our junior high team. He's had some amazing accomplishments, 22 district champs, 6 regional champs, 20 regional place finishers. That allows them to qualify for the states. 7 state medalists, 1 state champ. Also, I will tell you, knowing Darren, during all that time, he's also raised one amazing young man in his son, Maddox. So we say to both of our coaches, thank you so much for your dedication, for your service. And again, we wish you well moving forward. Mr. Testa is not going anywhere as a teacher, as an educator, his most important role with our district and one that he has spent many, many years doing. He is not retiring from teaching, just coaching. With that, I also would like to thank and announce that this coming Wednesday, we will be holding a ribbon cutting event on our baseball field. If you've been on our secondary campus over the past few weeks, you are seeing something that you haven't seen in some time, well over a decade, and that's the return of senior high baseball to our campus. And we are proud that this coming Wednesday, we are going to have a little ceremony, some special guests. We'll do a ribbon cutting. Some members, I believe, of the Board of Education, if their arm will hold up until Wednesday, will be throwing out the first pitch. And I also want to mention that we had a wonderful donation. And if you notice our sign, our new scoreboard for the baseball team, it is in memory of John Matthew Dean, I've learned a lot about John Matthew in the last couple months. A 4-year-old boy who had so much courage and so much strength and taught us so much in just his 4 short years on this earth. And it is so wonderful to see that sign memorizing this great man. And every night when I drive home, I look at that sign and realize just how blessed we all are for all the blessings that we have in our lives and get a chance to see that it's so much more than a baseball game on that field. So I am also happy to announce lots of improvements to our girls softball field as well. And shortly, very shortly, their scoreboard will be going up as well. So that concludes my announcements for this month. I again thank the public for all their support. I thank our parents for being partners with us over the past year. It's still a very difficult time. We are still battling COVID each and every day. Students in quarantine, faculty in quarantine, but together we're getting through this. And our kids seem very, very happy. They feel safe, and we're going to do all we can to continue that going forward. So thank you again to our public, and most importantly, our families and our students. Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. Solicitor's report.
Hello, everybody. My name is Attorney Kristen Geritano. I'm here for Jack Dean tonight. Just very quickly, earlier this month, the district had 2 days of arbitration for a professional staff issue. There will be a 3rd day in June. We don't know the date of that arbitration yet. That's all.
Thank you, Kristen. Our committee reports, financial planning, Mr. Swank. You're muted, Randy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Financial Planning Committee, we will be seeking approval of items 1. Scroll up there for me. I don't have a PDF in front of me. 1 through 8.
Thank you. Transportation, Mrs. Spath.
Thanks. I'll be seeking approval for items 1, A and B.
Thank you. Policy, Mr. Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be seeking approval for item 1A through E.
Thank you. Human Resources, Mrs. McGovern.
I will be seeking approval for items 1 through 8.
Okay, I want to scroll slowly there so that we can see the names.
Don't ask me to pronounce numbers.
Okay, yeah, 6, 7, and 8. They were just filled in. Okay. Thank you. Academic programs, Mrs. Bibla.
I will be seeking approval for items 1 through 4.
Thank you. Co-curricular, Mr. Swank.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. I will be seeking approval of items 1 through 3.
Thank you. Physical plant and construction, Mrs. Haddix.
Hello, I will be seeking approval for item number 1.
Thank you. Technology, Mrs. McCurdy.
Yes, we have no report with it for the Technology Committee this month, Mr. President.
Thank you. Positive behavioral intervention, Mrs. Bibla.
I'll be seeking approval for items 1 and 2.
Thank you. Intermediate unit, Mr. Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Intermediate 18, our minutes are on file in the superintendent's office and on the district website, and our next LIU meeting is scheduled for April 28, 2021 at the LIU boardroom.
Thank you. Wilkes-Barre Area Career and Technical Center, Mrs. McCarty.
Yes, thank you. The minutes are on file in the superintendent's office and on the district website. The next CTC meeting is April 19th, 2021 in the CTC cafeteria. And I just want to report to the board that our Crestwood students started back at the CTC 4 days a week this week, and things are going very well. So I hope that they can continue. That's all. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any questions from the board on agenda items?
Barry, this is Mr. Costello. I have a couple questions on the boiler project, and I apologize if they were covered at the last meeting. I was not able to attend last Thursday. So I don't know if this is the time you want us to ask those questions, or you want to wait for public testimony. I'll leave that.
Please go now. Mrs. Haddix can most likely answer your questions.
Okay, very good. So my first question is just from the proposal, the replacement of the boiler system. I know it's extremely complex to install as well as remove our previous. Just one of my questions was, what's the cost directly associated with the boiler system unit? And then what's the cost associated with the labor, which could be for installation as well as removal? Do we have any general breakdown of what that is?
We do. The boilers themselves are about $150,000 ballpark. The installation of the boilers plus the demo of the old boilers, the old expansion tanks, a large holding tank that is currently in the boiler room that is taking up a lot of square footage, insulation, electrical, that's about $350,000. We're also doing new expansion tanks, so the tanks and the installation's about $20,000.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question, did we do a public bid for this project?
This is a co-stars agreement.
Okay. Did we reach out to any other co-star companies to provide us with optional prices and structures and replacements?
We did not.
And is this a company that is traditionally then worked for the district?
The company that is providing the boilers is the same company that was also going to provide boilers under the Siemens proposal.
And finally, is in this, again, it's your expertise here, or Scott, however with the weather changing, I know that these are in need, there's no question. Is it something that we could put out for bid, or is this something that we need to really approve right at this minute to try to get ahead of this seasonal, weather?
So the second boiler, the boiler that was not rebuilt last year, the second boiler is beginning to fail. There are signs of that failure beginning already. So the timing of this project is really fast-tracked so we can do it as cheap as possible while the boilers will be down over the summer. These boilers are strictly for comfort heating. They're not for hot water. So they are not in use from late spring until early fall. This would be the ideal time to do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions on agenda items from the board? Questions from the board on non-agenda items? Public testimony, agenda items. Mr. Blanchard,
Nothing on agenda items.
non-agenda items.
Yes, we have Amanda Madrofsky asks, can you please let us know what the status will be for bathrooms at the secondary campus? Will they be mostly locked? There's a follow-up to that. My understanding is that only a couple of them are open during the day, and it's difficult for students to access the ones that are not locked.
I will make note of that. There are some bathrooms that we have locked, and not necessarily locked, but shut down because we don't want bathrooms to be the places where kids may be going in 3, 4, 5 at a time. So we have areas where we are much better able to monitor those bathrooms, but I am not certain of any issues. I will check tomorrow with our administration on that. But I've spent a lot of time. I haven't seen that be an issue yet. We know that when we come back more full-time next week, that certainly it will be. But we are trying to do is limit the amount of students that are going into a bathroom at one time. And that's why we have certain bathrooms that we're asking kids to go to or students to go to, because we can monitor who's in there and make sure it's not having more than 2 to 3 people at one time.
Thank you, Mr. Hollick. And Amanda Madrofsky also asks, is there a plan to have someone monitoring the entrance to the school after hours?
So we've discussed having someone monitor that in the past, but right now there is no one. When school ends, we are probably on campus till 5:30 most days, but after that there is no one inside besides the custodian or the maintenance staff.
And then a comment is it's open so that anyone could walk in and go anywhere.
The people that are coming in are people that have purposes to come in. We do have play practice. All events besides volleyball are outdoors now. So they're outdoors. Volleyball is down at our middle school gymnasium. So the only people in would be students coming in. We do also lock all of the gates in our hallways. So only where there would be business going would you have access to. So all the gates in the hallways would be put down.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. And that's all the questions, Mr. Booth.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we will start the voting session. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bibla,
Here.
Mr. Brogna, Mrs. McCurdy,
Here.
Mrs. McGovern,
Here.
Mrs. Spath,
Here.
Mr. Swank,
Present.
Mr. Costello,
Here.
Mrs. Haddix,
Here.
and Mr. Boone.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you. I will be seeking a motion for approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 18th, 2021. I so move.
Motion.
Mr. Costello.
And Mrs. McCurdy on a second.
Yes.
Roll call.
Miss Bibla,
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy,
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern,
Yes.
Mrs. Spath,
Yes.
Mr. Swank,
Yes.
Mr. Costello,
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. I need a motion for approval of the treasurer's report of March 2021.
Second, or motion, Mr. Swain.
Got it.
Second, Mrs. McGovern.
Thank you. Mrs. Bibla?
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy?
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern?
Yes.
Mrs. Spath?
Yes.
Mr. Swank?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Financial planning, Mr. Swank.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. I will be seeking a motion for approval of items 1 through 8.
Motion, Mrs. Spath.
Second, Mrs. Haddix.
Mrs. Bibla?
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy?
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern?
Yes.
Mrs. Spath?
Yes.
Mr. Swank?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix?
Yes.
And Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Transportation, Mrs. Spath.
Thank you. I'll be seeking a motion for approval of item 1, A and B.
Motion, Bibla.
Second,
Second.
Mr. Costello.
Mrs. Bibla?
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy?
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern?
Yes.
Mrs. Spath?
Yes.
Mr. Swank?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix?
Yes.
And Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Policy, Mr. Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be making a motion for the recommend consideration to approve the following policies for their third reading and adoption, item 1A through E. I so move.
Second, Mr. Swank.
Ms. Bibla?
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy?
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern?
Yes.
Mrs. Spath?
Yes.
Mr. Swank?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix?
Yes.
And Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Human Resources, Mrs. McGovern.
Recommend consideration and approve items 1 through 8.
Motion. Mrs. McCurdy.
Second. Costello, second.
Mrs. Bibla?
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy?
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern?
Yes.
Mrs. Spath?
Yes.
Mr. Swank?
I will abstain on number 7. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix?
Yes.
And Mr. Boone?
I abstain on item 5A, or excuse me, 5B. Yes on the rest.
Motion carried.
Academic programs, Mrs. Bibla. Hello, Anna.
Sorry, my internet's bad. I recommend consideration and approval of items 1 through 4. I so move.
Second, Mr. Swank.
Ms. Bibla?
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy?
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern?
Yes.
Mrs. Spath?
Yes.
Mr. Swank?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix?
Yes.
And Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Co-curricular, Mr. Swank.
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 through 3. I so move.
Second, Mr. Costello.
Mrs. Bibla,
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy,
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern,
Yes.
Mrs. Spath,
Yes.
Mr. Swank,
Yes.
Mr. Costello,
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix,
Yes.
and Mr. Boone.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Physical plant and construction, Mrs. Haddix.
I will be seeking a motion for approval of item number 1.
Motion, Mrs. Spath.
Second, Mrs. McCurdy.
And Mrs. Bibla,
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy,
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern,
No.
Mr. Swank,
No.
Mrs. Spath,
Yes.
Mr. Costello,
No.
Mrs. Haddix,
Yes.
and Mr. Boone.
Yes,
5 members, yes. 3 no. Motion carried.
okay. Positive behavioral intervention, Mrs. Bibla.
I recommend consideration and approval of items 1 and 2. I so move.
Second, Mrs. Spath.
Mrs. Bibla,
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy,
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern,
Yes.
Mrs. Spath,
Yes.
Mr. Swank,
Yes.
Mr. Costello,
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix,
Yes.
and Mr. Boone.
Yes,
Motion carried.
okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Boone.
Yes,
This is Maureen. Can we go back? We go back to human resources, and is it possible for me to change my vote on the one item?
let me ask the solicitor.
Yeah, that's not a problem since it has not been finalized yet.
Can you move it up, please? On item number 7, I would like to vote no.
Any other items for discussion? Okay, our next scheduled committee meeting of the whole is a budget meeting on, whoa, that's not correct. Mr. Bard, our next budget meeting, it says April 12th. That is not.
No, that's not correct. It's
Supposed to be May 12th.
May 12th?
no, actually, that's not correct either. We have one on May the 3rd.
Oh, May 3rd.
Monday, May 3rd. Monday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. The location will be in person at the high school auditorium, and it will be live streamed as well. And then the committee meetings will be as follows. Then on the 13th and the 20th.
Okay, and the committee meeting and board as a whole will also be live streamed and hopefully held in the high school auditorium on the secondary campus. At this time, motion to adjourn.
We have to
Motion,
do roll
Mrs.
call.
Spath.
Well, we need a motion and. a
Okay,
second.
sorry about that. Go ahead.
Motion,
Spath.
Mrs. Spath.
Okay.
Second, Mr. Swank.
Mrs. Bibla,
Yes.
Mrs. McCurdy,
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern,
Yes.
Mrs. Spath,
Yes.
Mr. Swank,
Yes.
Mr. Costello,
Yes.
Mrs. Haddix,
Yes.
and Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you for attending. We are adjourned at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Have a good night.